Honourable Member for Edmonton Beverly Clare, being followed by Innisfail Sylvan Lake.
Mr. Speaker, this education minister capitulated to right-wing special interest groups and the Wild Rose and removed the protections of the Human Rights Act and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms from the Education Act. The minister just said he doesn't tolerate discrimination of schools in any kind. To the Minister of Education, then why did you remove it?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let's be really clear about what the Section 11 of the Human Rights Act is about. It's about parental rights. There was a time in the history of this country and in the history of this province where parental rights with respect to education were not respected, and we spent a day last week lamenting that dark period in Alberta's history. The government knows better than the parent with respect to making choices for the education of their children. We don't believe that. Obviously, we've got some strict standards, we've got some great legislation to protect human rights, and those things are in place, and they supersede the Education Act and other things that are out there. But, Mr. Speaker, parental rights and parental choice is important too.
First up now.
Mr. Speaker, human rights are being trampled. Given that we've at least 2 examples of schools blatantly violating human rights that are enshrined in the Canadian Charter, and given that schools are openly discriminating against vulnerable youth and teachers by requiring them to sign unconstitutional codes of conduct, to the same minister, why are you allowing publicly funded schools and school boards to violate the Charter of Rights of their students and staff and discriminate against them?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we're not allowing anything. We do devolve a lot of authority to school boards. They're duly elected trustees of the system, and they manage the operations, they manage those employment agreements, and so forth, and they should. If circumstances come to light, like we've recently been made aware of, we're going to look into those and we're going to address those, because there's provincial legislation, there's national legislation to protect people, and we're going to make sure that's enforced.
Supplemental.
Mr. Speaker, given that because this PC government succumbed to pressure from the Wild Rose and special interest groups, students can be expelled for exercising their constitutionally protected rights, and given that as Minister of Education, it's your responsibility to ensure all students can go to school free from bullying and discrimination, will you stop making offensive excuses and commit to ensuring that constitutional human rights are protected in publicly funded schools? And if not, why not?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think it's only the NDP that view parents as a special interest group. Mr. Speaker, I think that what I've just said here over the last several questions is affirmation that we are committed to the Human Rights Act in Alberta, is affirmation that we are committed, if you look at the Education Act in Alberta and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and we're going to work with our school boards and everyone who's funded by this province to deliver education to make sure that those pieces of legislation are being adhered to.